On Ian vs. Daddybones, we're paying tribute to the legendary Kevin Conroy and talking about Mer-Man.
Oh boy, kids, we're gonna have fun today!
Yay! Hey! Alright!
How is everyone doing tonight?
Welcome back. It is episode 3 of Ian vs. Daddybones. I am Ian Daddybones. I want to thank everybody for checking out the show today. Before we get started, I want to give a special high five and a shout out to all the Patreon subscribers. I truly appreciate all of you from the bottom of my heart. This shit has only been active for like a week and a half. We're on the 3rd episode of Ian vs. Daddybones, and right now I already have 7 motherfuckers that are like, you know what? I believe in this and I fuck with you. So for y'all, thank you. We are off to a wonderful start here on Ian vs. Daddybones. And if you want to give me a digital handy, you can head over to the Patreon, Ian vs. Daddybones. Subscribe for $1. It's not going to kill you. I'll appreciate it at the end of the day. You're going to keep this shit going. You're going to help fund it, and we're going to keep rolling down that fucking track. And I owe it to all of y'all Patreon subscribers for the smile on my face right now, because that's all I wanted to do was think of a way, how can I bring back a banging ass podcast? And for the past 2 years of pandemic, losing my best friend, depression, all I've been doing is buying fucking toys. So right now, all I'm doing is sitting on fucking content to produce, and here we are. And y'all are helping me along the way, and I truly appreciate that, again, from the bottom of my heart. But today, on Ian vs. Daddybones, we're going to be paying tribute to the legendary Kevin Conroy. Now, Kevin Conroy, to many people, and 90% of the people doing tribute videos like this right now, 90% of those videos are going to focus on Kevin Conroy's portrayal of Batman for the past 3 years. I mean, unless you've been living under a rock for the past couple of days, anybody who is involved in geek nerd fandom, whether it's video games, animated films, comic books, TV, not only are they very well aware of who Batman is, but they know who's been voicing him for the past 3 decades. I mean, the guy's fucking legendary, and unfortunately, he passed away. And it's one of those type of things where I found out on Facebook. There's a guy I know named Justin that does incredible cosplay. He posted a status saying it's not exactly confirmed right now, and I hope to God it's not true. But then right underneath his post, right on my Facebook feed, was legendary voice actor Kevin Conroy passes away. And fucking here we are on Ian vs. Daddybones. Because other blogs, other vlogs, other podcasts are going to focus on him being Batman. But to me, at the end of his career, Kevin Conroy's final 2 performances were Masters of the Universe related. Number 1, he provided the voice of Mer-Man in Masters of the Universe Revelations, and that's the character that we're going to unbox later today. And I'm actually breaking my Masterverse rule. My intention was not to open these Masterverse figures. I think they look too fucking gorgeous in the box with the way they're posed. I kind of don't want to take them out. I like the side art. I like the back art. You know, it's just, he looks really fucking fresh, just chilling in his package. And, you know, that's where I'd like him to remain. But the more I think about it, I had a lot of fun unboxing 40th Anniversary He-Man. On the first episode of the show, 40th Anniversary He-Man was the first Masterverse figure that I opened, and I really enjoyed it. And it was a lot of fun, actually, just holding that fucker in my hand and just being like, wow, I've been opening Origins figures for the past 1.5 years, almost 2 years. And, you know, these feel very retro and fresh and as close to what I had as a kid that I'll ever have unless I go start collecting vintage figures. But these are different. These just felt amazing. Like, the weight of the figure, like, the posability, the articulation, it was just amazing. It was like the best He-Man figure I ever had the pleasure of holding in my hands. It was fucking dope. But we're going to be opening up Mer-Man later in the show. But before we get started, Just a little backstory talk on Mer-Man. Who the fuck is Mer-Man? Well, Mer-Man is one of Skeletor's henchmen. He's one of his goons. And Mer-Man is actually one of the original 5 Masters of the Universe figures. Now, when the toy line was originally in development with Mattel, Mattel basically, when Masters of the Universe came to be, all Mattel wanted to do was just create a toy line for boys that can compete with Kenner and Star Wars. Now, when they were at the drawing board, coming up with concept ideas, concept art, fleshing out designs, coming up with these characters, the original working title for Masters of the Universe for the toy line was Lords of Power. But the more Mattel thought about it, the word Lords was too close to religion, and they didn't want to be associated with that or have people think that's what's driving this toy line. So Lords of Powers was shit-canned, renamed Masters of the Universe, but there were still prototype images released, revealed, that have been uncovered and that are in books today, where it shows the 5 prototype versions of He-Man, Skeletor, Man-at-Arms, Beastman, and Mer-Man. And by the time the prototypes were posed and taken, and this picture was taken, certain elements were changed with the figures before they hit retail. And Mer-Man is one of those classic examples of how this prototype to retail, running changes affected everything. Because basically, on the back of the Masters of the Universe figures, you have your cross-sale art. You have a little image of the character you just bought, and then you have little pictures of other stuff in the toy line that they also want you to run out to the store and buy, where they put each sold separately. And so you had the cross-sell art on the back of the Masters of the Universe figures, and Mer-Man's one of the OG's originals. And Mer-Man, he's depicted on the back of the packaging art with this head. However, when the figure hit shelves, it had this head. 2 completely different heads for the same character, and also Mer-Man had some additional deco like yellow boots, yellow gloves that were omitted from the final figure when it came out. So Mer-Man never exactly looked like his original prototype intended look. They made some running changes, and I don't know if it was for cost measures or what, but at the end of the day, Mer-Man just didn't add up. 80s kids knew about it immediately. Like, why doesn't my Mer-Man figure look like the guy in the back of the packaging? We never got an answer for that as in the 80s. Same thing with like Man-E-Face's cross-sale art. Man-E-Face's cross-sell design image doesn't exactly line up with the action figure, but it's just little things like that to just make me smile looking back on the toy line, you know what I mean? Hearing these stories and whatnot, I really think it's incredible. But basically, Mer-Man is one of Skeletor's goons. He's right there with Trapjaw and Triclops and Beastman and Evil Lyn. And it's funny because I got introduced to Mer-Man as a kid. So Mer-Man was the first type of character that had any underwater crown, any control over underwater creatures, and basically, before I even knew who the hell before I even know who the hell Aquaman or Namor the Submariner was, I knew who Mer-Man was. So it's like when I saw Super Friends cartoon as a kid, and I saw Aquaman for the first time, blonde hair and fish feet, you know what I mean? It's like, I thought Aquaman was lame as fuck and couldn't compare to Mer-Man. Like, Aquaman sucked compared to Mer-Man. But then, Aquaman was always at least portrayed to be somewhat tough. Mer-Man was always a bumbling fool. He was there for like comedic purposes, and he just came across mostly as a bumbling idiot who always sounded like he was underwater. You know what I mean? They gave him that fish character type voice, that Skeletor. You know what I mean? But either way, like, Mer-Man was always portrayed in Masters of the Universe as a bumbling idiot, even though in the original mini comics that were more like mini story books, he actually was able to pose a threat to He-Man. But overall, the Mer-Man character, I honestly don't think I had Mer-Man as a kid. I think Mer-Man was one of those figures that other kids I played with who had Masters of the Universe toys, I believe they had Mer-Man. I never had Mer-Man, but I did have Stinkor when I was a kid. And Stinkor, you know, he was a character that was based off, you know, the same parts that they already had available. He was just simply repainted. Stinkor wasn't shit, but a repainted Mer-Man made to look like a skunk that had patchouli oil mixed in with the plastic, which is why Stinkor smelled like a skunk. I'm actually glad that they didn't put, like, you know, a tuna scent in the plastic for Mer-Man. Otherwise, he just constantly smell like fish, and I think that would be an instant turn-off when it came to me being in a store making a purchase. Be like, nah, I don't want the fish-smelling guy, not at all. But real quick, moving on. You got OG Mer-Man. Now, mind you, this isn't vintage. This is the, I believe, Wave 3 Masters of the Universe Origins Mer-Man. So this is the 2021 Mer-Man. That's as closely, you know, it's as accurate as it's going to be to the original vintage figure, only now it has 16 points of articulation. And then in the 5th wave of Masters of the Universe Origins, they actually put out a second Mer-Man figure, only the second Mer-Man figure is based on the Lords of Power Mer-Man prototype. And I do gotta say that while I originally always thought Mer-Man was one of the lamest of Skeletor's henchmen, I mean, you know, compared to like Beastman, Trapjaw, and Triclops, you know, Fishface was like the lamest. And he was always like, you know, he was always being insulted. He was always screwing up and whatnot, and like, you know, it's like he was the one that they were constantly picking on, and, you know, he wasn't that cool of a villain. I mean, he exists, but like, I don't know, as time went on, like, you know, you had the 80s Masters of the Universe cartoon series, you had the 2000X Mike Young Toonami Cartoon Network Masters of the Universe reboot. Like, I like that series because that Mer-Man looked more like the Lords of Power original incarnation of what Mer-Man was supposed to look like. So I actually enjoyed his portrayal in the 2000X series. And, you know, in Masters of the Universe Revelations, you know, moving on to the Masterverse figure real quick, you know, a lot of people, you either love this show or you hate this show. Like, the Masters of the Universe Revelations has really like split the fan base to a degree, because a lot of people feel that they were lied to and there were broken promises in the pre-production leading up to this show getting released. Like, a lot of, like, we were all basically told this Masters of the Universe Revelations Netflix Kevin Smith series was gonna be the successor to the Filmation series from the 80s. Now, for starters, that's a bunch of bullshit because it's two completely different studios. Filmation was its own thing, and the studio responsible for Masters of the Universe Revelations is the same studio that was responsible for the amazing Castlevania series that also aired on Netflix. So, you know, right off the bat, no, there's no way in hell this is a successor to the original Masters of the Universe series. If anything, it's a successor to all animated forms of Masters of the Universe, so they could go forward inspired by these original back in the day series. But in Masters of the Universe Revelations, you actually get introduced to two versions basically of each character. Because I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to go out of my way to spoil Masters of the Universe Revelations for you. If anything, when you're done watching this, and if you have Netflix, go watch Masters of the Universe Revelations. It's amazing. There's 2 parts, 10 episodes, and it's fantastic. There's a follow-up series to it coming out, Masters of the Universe Revolution, and that looks absolutely fantastic as well. I mean, granted, all they showed was a teaser image that shows King Randor's crown, but basically, something happens in Revelations. So, if you look at it for like for us living in the world, we had life before the pandemic, and now we have life after the pandemic. So, in Revelations, you have Eternia with He-Man and Skeletor, and then you have Eternia with no He-Man and no Skeletor. So, in the period when He-Man and Skeletor were there, Mer-Man was depicted in flashback scenes looking like Mer-Man. However, there's portions of the show that take place when He-Man and Skeletor are gone. And that's where you see a lot of the current modern forms of these characters. Like, for example, classic Teela had long hair, looked like Teela. New Teela has a short haircut. She's wearing like mercenary gear, and she's basically been dubbed by the internet as butch lesbian Teela. So, like, Teela has two different looks. Like, Evil Lyn has different looks. Beastman has two distinguished looks. And moving on to Mer-Man, like I said, he's got two looks. He's got his flashback scene look where he's wearing his coral and fishbone armor with his coral sword. But when we see Mer-Man be Mer-Man, he's depicted in his modern form. And in his modern form, he's not wearing the coral fishbone armor. He's got more of a fishbone sword. He's got his trident spear, and he's wearing less. He's missing his armor. He's covered in scars. And on one hand, it kind of looks like a lame figure because other than the extra hands and the accessories, like, it's kind of a lame and boring character. Especially when you look at, like, his Origins versions that come with the sword and his armor and his belt and whatnot. But overall, I can say this character, I'm going to have fun unboxing Mer-Man. I'm looking forward to it, but going back real quick, it's just this version of Mer-Man. This was one of Kevin Conroy's final roles. And the other Masters of the Universe role that Kevin Conroy provided his voice for was in the second He-Man in the Masters of the Universe CG animated reboot series that's aimed at our children. Kevin Conroy actually got cast to be the voice of Hordak, and unfortunately Hordak only showed up in like the final scene of the final episode of the second season of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And it's kind of sad that he's not going to be returning to voice this character that he ushered in this one scene at the end of this season. But I could honestly say, I can hear him voice Batman. I can hear him voice Bruce Wayne. See the differences between the two voices, even though he's playing the same guy. But looking at Masters of the Universe Revelations, like, Mark Hamill got cast as the voice of Skeletor in this series. But in my honest opinion, his Skeletor is just his Joker. I hear Skeletor talking shit. I hear the Joker talking shit to Batman. But when Kevin Conroy voiced the Mer-Man, I honestly forgot he got cast. And it wasn't until like my third viewing that I realized, holy shit, that's the voice of Batman. And then it even further made me smile because I'm looking at it like, this is interesting. These guys, Mark Hamill, Kevin Conroy, these guys have spent 3 decades being enemies, being the voices of Batman and the Joker. But for me, with Masters of the Universe Revelations, it was so cool to see them voicing Mer-Man and Skeletor. So on this time, they're allies and they're on the same side instead of being enemies. And I just really got a kick out of that. And so I think for a lot of people paying tribute to him right now, doing nonstop talking about Batman and everything Batman related to the guy, like there's so many other roles that he lent his voice to. I even come to find out in the late 70s and in the 80s, he had live acting performances on TV shows and shit before, he even voiced Batman. So it's like the guy who had a whole career before he had another career, and at the end of his career, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Because you see so many people mourning him in their own way. I know a lot of people that read comic books. I know a lot of people that love anime. I know a lot of people like me who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, being around this shit when it was in its prime. My 13th birthday, I was out in Kansas. My grandparents were renewing their vows, right? Because my grandparents' anniversary is the day before my birthday. So when I was 12 going on 13, my mom and I went out to Kansas because that's where my grandparents were living at the time. They renewed their vows. We were at my aunt's house. And when I was out there with my cousins and my uncles and stuff, we decided to go to the theaters, and we saw Batman Returns. So I remember seeing Batman Returns, and that was the summer of Batman. And then going back to school that year, Batman the Animated Series started. And, as far as, with me being a kid, there were 80s brands galore, but Masters of the Universe was my shit. Sure, you had Thundercats, Transformers, and Mask, and all other stuff, but Masters of the Universe was my favorite. So all other cartoon series was, judged against Masters of the Universe in my head. And it's later, it was, after Masters of the Universe, I moved on to Ninja Turtles. But then, while I was at that 12 to 13 period, where I'm growing out of the action figures, crossing over more into video games, because that 13th birthday was also the same year that I got my Sega Genesis. So, it was less action figures back then at the time, more focus on video games, but that was my jam after school. Come home from school, play a little Sega Genesis, watch Batman the Animated Series, and it was absolutely great. I loved Batman the Animated Series. There was so many dark episodes in that shit. Honestly, I think the one Clayface episode was one of the saddest shits. But nah, overall, like I said, a lot of people paying tribute to Kevin Conroy are going to be talking about his portrayal of Batman over the years, and even explaining it to my son, Buddy Misters, my son Owen. I was telling him, because Owen doesn't know Batman the Animated Series like that, even though it's been available for him to watch. He's seen, I don't want to say he's seen enough Batman, but Batman's not on my son's radar as much as it was on my radar when I was a kid. But for the purpose of my son understanding it, I'm like, Kevin Conroy. I'm like, basically every Batman Arkham Asylum game you played, Arkham City, Arkham Knight. He's like, yeah. I go, he was Batman in that. Oh, okay. So now my son gets it, but like I said, I really think he nailed it as Mer-Man. His Mer-Man actually came across as a threat. You know what I mean? And especially with Aquaman getting movies, you know what I mean? And now the second Black Panther movie just hit theaters, and now we officially have Namor the Submariner. Aquaman and Namor the Submariner are way more powerful than Mer-Man could ever be, but Mer-Man was who I got introduced first, and basically for being the buffoon, the boob, as Skeletor calls them when they fuck up. You know, he may be one of Skeletor's boobs in the original series, but I mean, as far as Revelations goes, you know, Kevin Conroy's delivery of his lines and the way he made Mer-Man come to life, like Mer-Man actually comes across as a real fucking threat, like with him and his aquatic guards. It's just really good. I don't know how much more I could recommend Masters of the Universe Revelations, but you should go check it out. And even in the new Masters of the Universe series that they just put out on Netflix, like I said, Kevin Conroy provided the voice of Hordak before he passed away. Mer-Man got introduced in the last season of Masters of the Universe, which is interesting because this Mer-Man's not one of Skeletor's goons. This Mer-Man is actually a king of the deep. This Mer-Man is more regal, but this Mer-Man also has an incredible new redesign. He's more like covered in barnacles and underwater bullshit than he is just being fish-faced and, you know, here's my bone sword and my coral armor and fish scale this and fish scale that. I mean, these two new redesigns of Mer-Man really make him look like a badass and a threat. So, with that said, let's open this fucker up.
Fuck Ian Daddybones. Fuck Twin Widow, whatever the hell it is. No one gives a shit about you, Ian. Everyone hates you. Fuck off.
Oh my god, I'm so excited. Having a banger and you're all invited. Share with friends and I'll see you later. Bring everyone, invite my haters. Throw your hands in the fucking air. Let's push a cripple down a flight of stairs. Got new shit right for your ears. My Hadouken is downright fierce. Rock out with my cock out. Jump around, I got your shout outs. I'm Daddybones, no need to panic. Talking riddles like a schizophrenic. 24/7, I got the party. Roofie roos and whoop-de-doos. Retarded fools with attitudes, bro. Everything's mixed with Bacardi. Glow stick black like tons of bubbles. Titties on bitches, nothing but trouble. Got my pills, ain't no quitter. Pop that shit, here comes my glitter. Not a dancer, I got no skills. Bobbing my head and standing still. Tons of bitches, ravers, goths. Down to fuck and get your salad tossed. It's the greatest thing that you ever saw. Put your hands in the air for a party. Oh my god, I'm so excited. Having a bang and you're all invited. Kids posing, muscles flexing, training's dressed like a favorite X-Men. If there's one thing that drives me crazy, you give high fives but you fucking hate me. Might have rabies, might have herpes. Breastfeed me and you'll have to burp me. I'll be up on stage, throwing out beads, grabbing my dick and spraying my seed all over your face. That's fucking rude. Raise it up and show your boobs. Dance around and go friggin' nuts. Just b-boy stance and light your blunts. Don't be a cunt. Tuck your chain, don't start no shit. Use your brain, it's all a game. Let's play some Yahtzee, eat Tide Pods and punch a Nazi. Not a dancer, I got no skills. Bobbing my head and standing still. Tons of bitches, ravers, goths. Down to fuck and get your salad tossed. It's the greatest thing that you ever saw. Put your hands in the air for a party. Oh my god, I'm so excited. Having a bang and you're all invited.
Alright, here he is in all his glory. Mer-Man from Masters of the Universe Revelations. One of the final roles Kevin Conroy lent his amazing voice to. And I could honestly say he did this character justice. Like I said, he actually makes this version of Mer-Man a threat. Like, he's covered in scars and shit, like he's had a career wrestling Sabu. He's got his little he has his like pants. They're shorts, but they're not exactly the furry underpants that He-Man had. They're more just like, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of a little bit of like the belt that came with Skeletor, but it's more just like he's got like hanging rags, like he's wearing like underpants or whatnot, but it's kind of like he's, I don't know, it's kind of like he's wearing an aquatic kilt. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you told Rowdy Roddy Piper that he was wearing a skirt, he would punch you in the face. And I feel like if you looked at Mer-Man and it was like, hey bro, nice skirt, he would stab you with that fucking spear. Either that or stab you with the fucking bone sword. But I could say overall, like, attention to detail on this figure is sick. Like, there's some weight to this guy. Like, it doesn't feel like shoddy or cheaply put together. I mean, this Mer-Man, 16 points of articulation. This fucker's 30 points of articulation. I mean, I think it's great with these characters because, I mean, a lot, like I said previously, to me the best thing with the Masters of the Universe Revelations figures, since it's a Mattel brand, Mattel also has the WWE license. So like the WWE Elite figures, the Ultimate Editions, they're like the same. They're the same thing as Masterverse. Like even WWE's packaging, like that could be Hulk Hogan. That could say Hulk Hogan. That could be Hulk Hogan on the inside, and on the back you got Hulk Hogan and info about Hulk Hogan. And like they use the same basic parts, like shoulders, thighs, you know what I mean? Fucking ankles and calves and forearms and hands for the most part. I mean, it's fucking Mer-Man. He's the underwater creature of the deep. But I'm saying for like, you know, He-Man and Man-at-Arms and like, you know, the basic male and female body parts are pretty much shared between Mattel's toy brands. So these are like the perfect scale next to John Cena or your Fiend Bray Wyatt or even your 86 Mr. T figure. You know, they're the same scale, compatible with each other, and that's what I think's fucking dope about it, because Mattel also has a brand new line of WWE Superstars figures that are the same scale as Origins, and I'm gonna be talking about those figures on an upcoming episode of Ian versus Daddybones, because I collect those figures too, and those are gonna be a lot of fun to talk about. But like I said, overall, I like this figure. Once I got to open him, once I got to open him, hold him in my hands, play with him for a minute, I'm more impressed with the character than I was just looking at him in the box. I mean, he looked cool in his pose and whatnot, but I'm gonna be honest, like, Mer-Man's part of the most recent wave of Masterverse figures that included Viking He-Man, Classic Tila, Barbarian Skeletor, and Mer-Man. These are wave 4 of Masterverse. But with me collecting the Masterverse figures, like, Mer-Man was one of the final characters. Like, he was at the bottom of my list of me collecting, and, like, I'm not trying to shit on him, but, I mean, at the end of the day, it's fucking Mer-Man. Like, fun character. I mean, he deserves to be in the toy line. I just don't think he's anybody's favorite. But if he's not there, heads are gonna fucking roll if Mer-Man is omitted for any reason. But going back to the figure, comes with a spear, he has his fishbone sword. He doesn't have any of his classic looking armor, so I'd like to think at some point in the future we might get a new Eternia Mer-Man that comes with his fishbone coral armor and even his Lords of Power original looking head, because that's the one thing I can say about this Mer-Man, is this Mer-Man has the ugly cat-like looking Mer-Man head from the original version of the toy, and even his original appearance in the Filmation series. But two things I also wanted to point out, like, he's got two additional sets of hands, but the one I'm not gonna pop it out, but the one set of hands I think is really impressive is he has a set of hands that are open, but they actually molded the webbing between his fingers. So he actually has like fish hands, but for like a visual, they look dope. But he can't hold any of his accessories with the fish hands. So, I mean, because usually with action figures, you know, you got your open hand slap hand, you got your fist, and then you got your gripping jack-off hand. So, you know, it doesn't have any of the functionality of the jack-off hand or the slap. It just, I don't know. I mean, for visual decorative purposes, they're great, but I don't know, what's the point? Like, they come with accessories and swords. Me, and my OCD, I don't like losing accessories. I want to make sure everything that came with the figure is accounted for. So, he'll have his out-of-box hands holding his accessories, and these fuckers can just stay in the plastic. But overall, I'm more impressed with him out of the box than I was when he was in the box. And overall, I could say this is my second Open to Masterverse figure, and I'm debating. I don't know if he's going to go right back in the plastic in the box when I'm done with the show, or if I'm just going to put him on the shelf with the others. But overall, I do got to say he's a better figure out of the box than he is in the box. And I really can't shit on him, because honestly, this version of Mer-Man, he was only shown in the series for a few moments, for a few scenes. So while Kevin Conroy let his voice to the character, he only got a few opportunities to shine and make Mer-Man pop. So going forward, like, any future Masters of the Universe Revelations related future projects, I don't know who they're going to get to revoice Mer-Man. I'm not saying they're going to cut the character because Kevin Conroy passed away. I mean, that's like saying they're never going to cast another voice actor to play Batman, because, I mean, that's the thing. There's been plenty of other actors who've been voicing Batman in other roles. I mean, there's other voice actors who've been doing Batman in other cartoons and animated features. So it's not like it hasn't been done before. But Kevin Conroy is going to be the most legendary and well-remembered. I mean, at this point, I want to say, like, I think Batman fans today are super more than spoiled, that they're just cringe-worthy. What's the best way to say it? You're cringe-worthy spoiled, because you just bitch and complain about everything. Like, I didn't even see the new Batman movie yet, but just watching the internet just unload on Sparkly Vampire before you even saw the fucking movie, and then once you saw the movie, you're like, I'm never gonna call him a Sparkly Vampire again! You totally earned my respect, sir! What a wonderful Batman! Well, rewind. Years ago, before Batman the Animated Series, at one point there were only two Batmans. There was Michael Keaton and Adam West. You know? And Adam West, legendary voice. You know, he was an amazing Batman. But was he an amazing Batman for being that good, or was he an amazing Batman because that's all you fucking had at the time? Of course you're gonna love that Batman live action 60s show. That's all you fucking had. You know what I mean? But at one time, when you heard Batman in animated form, it was either only Adam West or it was Kevin Conroy. So if anything, like, those two guys, you know, paved the way for future voice actors to provide the voice of Batman. And, you know, I got a lot of respect for voice actors and whatnot. I think they're absolutely incredible. And honestly, it's like one regret I have in life. I always wanted to be a voice actor on cartoons, and it's just something I never pursued. And I'm kind of always pissed at myself for not doing that, because I think it would be pretty cool to lend your voice to cartoon characters and shit. But I think that's about gonna do it for this week's episode of Ian Daddybones. Rest in power, rest in peace, Kevin Conroy. I hate this type of shit. I hate doing the rest in peace shit. But I mean, the world's not going to forget you. Like I said, everyone's going to give you high fives for being Batman for 30 years, but this is your Mer-Man, and this is why he was open today on Ian vs. Daddybones. So with that said, I would like everybody watching this right now, smash that fucking like button, click that subscribe, click the bell notification. Go to patreon.com, throw me $1, give me a digital handy, and be one of my jerks. I need my jerks to get this off the ground, and I can't get off without a couple jerks like y'all. So with that said, I am Ian Daddybones. This has been episode 3 of Ian vs. Daddybones. And next episode, we are talking about Sunman and Rulers of the Sun. Cheers, Pete!
Epic roast guy. Epic roast guy. Meme Lord for real. Epic roast guy.
Yup. Yeah. Yup. Yeah. Yup. Yeah. Yup. Yeah. Yup.